Computer. All right, so here we go. All right, everybody. So today I have Shane Warner with Warner Legal here, and we're just going to kind of do some Q&A and answer some questions that I've been given from some other realtors in the industry. We're kind of in unprecedented times right now, so there's a lot of questions that are being asked about foreclosures and short sales, and so I've brought Shane on to kind of help us maybe navigate through some of this. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to him. He's going to introduce himself, where he's from, and all that good stuff, and then we'll kind of get into the question and answer. So go ahead, Shane.
Hi, my name is Shane Warner. I've been an attorney for 16 years now. I lived through the 2008 recession, did a lot of this kind of work back then. I'm sure a lot of that same stuff is going to be applying now. I have satellite offices in Tampa and Sarasota, and our main office is in Safety Harbor, Florida. I'm open and available anytime for phone calls, 813-470-6341. And hopefully we can try to help a lot of people out through this, yeah, as you said, very unprecedented time.
Yeah. All right. So one of the questions, probably maybe the easiest question for you, is going to be, when should a person get an attorney involved when they are behind on their mortgage or they're thinking of short selling or something like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The way I like to advise everybody is, if you can see the future and you know you're about to miss a payment, that's the best time to do it. As an attorney, we have more options that are available to us to give you if you know it's coming down the pipe. If you're already 3-4 months behind, our options get limited. You know, if we can get ahead of the ball, we're definitely in a lot better shape and situation. You know, people may not know it, but banks actually do want to work with you. You know, they want to try to work things out with you as best they can. And the best way for them to do that is to know what's going on. You know, there's a lot of options available out there, and you have more of them the sooner you get started.
Okay, and then if someone were to decide, okay, foreclosure is really my only option, what does that look like for them?
So when a bank starts a foreclosure proceeding, they will have to file something in court usually, and you'll get a notice of lis pendens filed in the county record. So you won't be able to sell the property without the bank being obviously notified of anything. And they will serve you with that, and it'll usually take 20 days to get you, you get 20 days to answer. After that, it depends on what type of defenses that you may have on how long the foreclosure could take place. They could be anywhere from 90 days to a year and a half, depending on what types of defenses you may have available to you.
Okay, so that's going to lead me into one of the other questions that somebody had. Typically, when you go through foreclosure, you know, it takes a little while, and then all of a sudden the bank says, oh, by the way, you need to be out. So given the circumstances that we're currently facing, where are you seeing the banks going with the whole eviction process?
So if the bank actually wins and gets a foreclosure judgment, they can technically get a writ of possession to get you out immediately. But immediately doesn't mean the day that they get the judgment. It's very hard for them to get in after the foreclosure, after they have their certificate of title. They've still got to file the paperwork and get stuff processed. But realistically, you need to be thinking that if the bank has obtained their foreclosure judgment and went through with the sale and obtained their certificate of title, you've got to plan on being out immediately, because it's just not worth the risk of having a sheriff show up and remove you from the property.
Sure. Okay. So we're hearing a lot of talk about the forbearances and the CARES Act, and you had brought that up to me before we went live. So why don't you talk a little bit about the CARES Act and what that entails, or what it could entail for people who are in a position where they're probably not going to be able to make their payments?
Sure. Well, the big thing is, I think the CARES Act is going to slow a lot of this down. And I think that's what it's meant to do, is try to slow the process of everything. If you have one of the appropriate loans under the CARES Act, which right now, as we understand, it's the Fannies, the Freddies, and the Ginnie-backed loans, you can go to your bank and get a forbearance for a year. That doesn't mean that you are free and clear of those payments. It means that they're going to put all those payments on the back end of your loan, and you're still going to owe them. But it's going to give you a year to try to get your house in order. And who knows, maybe you can modify, maybe things get better. There's going to be a lot of options available to you. All it's doing is saying you don't have to make these payments during this year, but you do have to make the payments on the back end. I do foresee that slowing down the foreclosure process on a lot of people and allowing them to elongate or try to plan ahead better, so that hopefully when that forbearance does end, maybe you'll be in a lot better position and you can negotiate with the bank to get some kind of a modification done.
That's great. That's what everyone wants to hear. Okay, so another question that we had from somebody was, obviously you as an attorney providing a service, you need to get paid. But obviously the person that's hired you is in a financial crisis and is short on cash. So how do you get paid in the foreclosure process?
Yeah, and there's a lot of different attorneys out there. I'm an attorney just like anybody else. I request payments up front in order to get involved. There are some attorneys that will take stuff on a contingency. There's a lot of options out there that are available. If you can't afford anything, there's even legal services out there that are available for those who can't afford it. So you can check with one of those legal services. But there are a lot of different attorneys and a lot of different types of people out there will take all types of cases. So if you have problems and you can't pay someone up front, you can look at the Florida Bar Referral Service, and anybody wants to contact us. If they can't afford us, I always refer them to that referral service so they can contact other attorneys as well. But there's a lot of options. You don't have to feel like the very first guy you talk to, you've got to pay his fee.
Awesome. So you would recommend interviewing different attorneys then?
I would. I would not only recommend interviewing them about their prices, but about their strategy in your particular situation. Because the other thing is there's a lot of attorneys who are one-trick ponies that go in with just one idea of how they want to do it. But depending on the type of loan you have, you may have a lot of different angles or defenses in that. So you want to make sure that the attorney you're using understands the complexities of everything.
That's a good point. It's a really good point. Okay, you kind of already answered this, but where do you see this whole thing going as far as foreclosures? We're going to talk about short sales too, but with foreclosures in general, you feel like because of the CARES Act, it's going to slow the foreclosure issue down, or do you think this whole thing could cause a foreclosure issue?
I think it's going to slow it down. I mean, everybody's talking about it right now about decreasing the curve. So I mean, it almost works the same for foreclosures right now. I think what you're going to have is a lot of people are going to be able to, forbear payments. So it's going to prevent these foreclosures. If you look in a lot of the counties already, we've got this 45-day postponement on any foreclosure actions. So they're already trying to stop what's going on cases that are currently in the court system. It's going to slow down the whole process, which I think is a good thing, because a lot of people from, mid-February to now have lost jobs or lost paychecks or had reduced paychecks. I mean, they may still be working, but I know a lot of clients that have vendors that just aren't paying them because their cash flow is short too. So this is definitely going to take some time to work through the system, but I think that's what the CARES Act was trying to do, is elongate out the process of foreclosures so you don't just get a big lump that's going to hit in May and June. I think it's going to take a long time for these banks to start filtering out who are the people that are going to survive this and who are the ones that aren't. And even the people that aren't, you may not really understand that until that full year of forbearance opportunity is over. So you might not see a ton of foreclosures really starting to hit until next year. But again, remember the CARES Act so far only applies to those certain types of loans. So anybody else that's got a different loan out there, those are the people that'll probably be coming through the system in the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay. All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about short sales. So I'll explain what my version as a realtor is for a short sale, and then you can expand on it. So typically a short sale is where the property owner owes more than what the home is worth on the open market. Is that correct in your view?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've had such a strong market the last few years, the equity position with most people should be there. So my take on it is, or my view would be, that we won't see a whole lot of short sales. But what's your view on that?
Yeah, again, I think you're accurate in that. I think for short sales to really start happening with everything else being slowed down the way it is, with, you're basically postponing foreclosures because you're allowing people to forbear their payments for a year. I think short sales are going to be slower as well. The only issue that's really going to affect short sales, though, in the near term is going to be the current mortgage applications, which, if you paid attention the last couple of weeks, have almost been down, what is it, like 15 to 20%
Yeah,
week over week. So they're actually coming down really fast. So that's where it's really hard to say, is that going to affect housing prices? I'm not a broker, so I don't know, but I would think that that's going to have a short-term effect to probably, freeze it a little bit. And then hopefully as the economy kind of gets back up and gets rolling again, maybe in June-ish, you start seeing those mortgage applications go back up so that, people are purchasing houses again. The interest rates are low enough right now that you would think that that's still going to incentivize a lot of people to jump on those houses. It's just,
yes,
are they going to have the jobs and the cash coming in so that they can do that? Because
exactly.
even if you get a 0% loan, if you don't have the cash to pay for it, it's not going to do you
Nope.
any good. So you got
No,
to
and you
have that.
have to prove it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to qualify, and a lot of people might not.
Yeah, and one of the other things that you really that's going to take effect is, recently JP Morgan Chase came out with their new guidelines. And their new guidelines are, we want people with 700 credit scores
Yep.
and 20% down. That's going to
Right.
change a lot of lending. That is going to change a lot of lending. If the other guys, Citi, Bank of America, Wells, if all of those guys start following suit, it's going to be they're definitely trying to get a less risk averse person out there so that their
Right.
risk portfolio isn't as large.
Yeah, they want strong buyers.
Right.
Okay, so tell me the short sale process versus foreclosure. Foreclosure, in my eyes, seems to be a quicker, easier. Short sale seems to be a little bit more tedious with a lot more detail.
Yeah. Short sales are a lot more tedious because there's a lot of negotiating going on. If you're a buyer coming into a short sale, you've got to understand the first thing you're going to do is not close fast. You've got to get bank approvals, and unless you have a pre-bank approval, the short sale is not going to happen within 30 days. It's just very difficult to do. And then a lot of the other times, the issues that happen in short sales, when you come in, you may have negotiated a certain price with the bank, but then you and the buyer still have to negotiate a price. You've still got to pay closing costs, who's paying those costs. So when it starts to work on your closing statement, how much money is really coming out of the pocket of the seller, sometimes the seller is going to have to pay more money than he wants to get out of it. So that can affect the deal on the seller versus buyer side. So you not only have that issue, but you've got the back end issue of trying to make sure that the bank is happy with how much they're getting. And that's why it's one of those situations where one little twist of the gear over here is going to twist three other gears on the other side. So you got to keep everybody involved. The best thing that you can do is just share the information as much as possible. But don't set people's expectations of having something done quickly, because that's just something that typically does not happen in a short sale. Just be ready to negotiate and share information. And if you're doing that with the bank and the buyer, then you can usually get through it pretty smoothly.
And then you have the issue of lien holder position, right?
Right.
A lot of the lien holders that are
Yep.
second and third, they typically are not happy and they don't want to agree because they're not going to get paid.
Yep.
So then you've got that whole back.
Well, and that's exactly right, because what you're doing, if you're a second or a third lien holder, number one, you want to get cash out of the seller because you're upset you're not getting paid. But the other thing is, you got to get that first lien holder, the bank, who's in the best position to be able to agree to give up some of their money. It's really hard to get all of those parties involved. So you're right. The more complex it is with lien holders, the harder it's going to be, because trying to get everybody on the same page on how much they get paid is a very difficult thing.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I have one more question and then we're going to wrap up because we don't want this to be too long. And this is coming from me being a realtor and listening to buyers call me and want to go see these pre-foreclosures that Zillow has listed all over their website. Tell me, what your opinion is of pre-foreclosures and what that means or what it doesn't mean, and why are they being shown on Zillow? Where are they getting the information to post those on Zillow?
Yeah. Well, I can't speak for Zillow because I don't know where they're pulling the information. More than likely,
Right.
I'll give you my guesstimate is that they are probably using the clerk's websites because anybody can get on there and pull official records on filings. So they are probably seeing some kind of default notices, or they're pulling records from some massive database like that. But where they're actually getting it, I don't know. I personally, as an attorney, don't like the term pre-foreclosure because it really, as far as trying to define something, has no meaning. It's hard to say what really technically is a pre-foreclosure. Every house out there, if you really want to dig down to it, is a pre-foreclosure because until you've paid off the bank, you don't own the house. So
Right.
everybody has the potential of being foreclosed on at some point, right?
Right.
Now, what Zillow is trying to define it as is probably more along the lines as someone has missed their payments. Now, whether or not they're actually only listing people that have been foreclosure action has been filed in court, or whether they're using notices of default, I don't know where their technical line in the sand is. And that's why I say it's a really hard thing to define because you're using a source where they're getting to define it themselves.
Right.
So you got to be careful about the term pre-foreclosure because the buyers themselves might be looking for a loan modification. They could be doing a refinance. They could be doing all kinds of things, and it may pull it right out of that refinance, and the house may not be available.
Right. So, as a realtor, if you're a buyer and you're seeing a pre-foreclosure somewhere, that house is not for sale. It probably never will be for sale. And if it does go up for sale, it's going to be months and months and months. So, no, we cannot show pre-foreclosures. They don't really even exist. So, just wanted to clear the air there because we get a lot of that going on. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, Shane, before we wrap up?
No, just stay safe and healthy out there.
Okay, why don't you tell us again how they can contact you and where you're located, and then we'll close this.
Sure. Best place to contact me. My main office is in Safety Harbor. It's in the big Harbor Point building down there, right next to the Starbucks. We're up on the second floor there, but the best way to reach me is my phone number, 813-470-6341.
All right, awesome. And I'm Amanda Alexander with eXp Realty. We're a cloud brokerage, so we don't have offices. So I'm in my lovely home here, but you can reach me at 727-871-0515 or amanda.alexander@exprealty.com. All right, thanks guys. Thank you,
Thank
Shane.
you.
Have a good day.
You as well.